and welcome everyone to another episode of the Safety Brief. Today we have Tanner and Matt joining in on the conversation. As always, thank you both for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you.
Always.
So, previously we touched on phishing red flags during Cybersecurity Awareness Month back in October. However, today we wanted to dive a little bit deeper and even look at some examples. With the holidays, I'm sure everyone's emails have been flooded. So, let's start the discussion off with this. From your professional perspective, what signs raise concerns about phishing emails? For instance, like identifying unknown senders or misspellings and so on.
Pretty much anything from the United States Postal Service. Just throw that out there.
That is pretty bad. I'm pretty sure we used that as an example previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's, as it relates to spoofing, a lot of people fall victim to spoofing because when you're not, like you were saying, Elizabeth, one of those examples that you used is the unknown sender. So you have that unknown sender. Some people see a domain and think, well, that is what it is. That's USPS. And oftentimes there's hidden language in those domains, or the user is not a valid user, and those are spoofed. That's not the only thing, but oftentimes spoof senders, unless somebody's compromised, you're not going to get a phishing email intentionally from somebody on a domain that you know, and knowing who that sender is through and through, from the user to the domain, being able to validate that and have an understanding of who you expect to be talking to, it is huge in recognizing phishing, especially with nothing in place.
So
To
let me
catch
give you
that.
guys a little example. Show and tell time. Okay? Ready? Ready? You probably can't read that,
Yeah,
but
phishing.
see the nice link right there? Yeah, so this says the USPS package arrived at the warehouse but could not be delivered due to incomplete address information. Please confirm your address in the link, which was usps-delay.top.
Yeah.
Please reply Y, then exit the text message and exit again to activate the link. Okay, this is common. So my response back to them was, I didn't know the USPS operated in Thailand. I mean, if you're going to send me something from a
You
phone
look it up.
number, I'm going to break it apart and find where you are, and then, well, let's just say you may or may not be receiving nonstop cat facts
Yeah. And
notifications now.
not to dumb it down too much, but I mean, really, if you don't have the knowledge or capability or tools to figure out where, I mean, they're public, you can get them anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But say that's not your thing. Say looking that stuff up isn't your thing. Like I said, not to dumb it down, but if you don't know or aren't expecting a package, that doesn't apply to you.
This is
That's
commonplace during this time of year because so many people are just mass shipping. I mean, I can tell you,
that is true.
my front porch it honestly looks like an Amazon distribution house right now because of how much junk shows up each day.
Yeah.
I have boxes upon boxes sitting in my hallway that are not mine. They belong to somebody else in my house, but I'm not aware that they are actually showing up. I'm not aware if we have stuff showing up from UPS, FedEx, because you don't always get notifications for that.
That's true. That is
So
true.
when you do get a notification, it's, oh God, what isn't showing up that that might be urgent? It plays on your emotions, and that's a common tactic. And it's the same thing that we saw with COVID. It's the same thing we see with the flu. I mean, people exploit the same thing. They send out emails saying there's an uptake in infections pertaining to the common cold or the flu or influenza type A, type B, whatever it is. Click this link to schedule an appointment now to get your flu shot. People still don't realize you don't have to schedule an appointment. Just walk into a CVS or a Walgreens and have them jab you in the arm. I
Yeah.
mean, this is an easy way to get people to, fall victim to drive-by downloads or phishing.
And I think that's another piece of phishing too, is like the way that the attacker would make it sound, right? There's always an urgency, there's always an importance. Oftentimes there could be a threat involved. And not to pick on the older folks, but when most of the time that scares people, right? Technology scares people in general, but when you have somebody reaching out to you over technology saying, "Hey, this is going to happen if you don't do this," they're like I said, our older generation, for the most part, not solely them, but I mean, you can fall victim pretty fast when you don't understand what can and cannot be done over the phone like that, and or over the email.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm going to see if I can actually get this to work. I'm just morbidly curious here, really fast. If I do a preview of it, will it actually come up? It will. Okay, that's cool. So that website that I went to, you probably can't see it too clearly, but if I do the preview, all you do is long click on a link and it'll bring up a preview pane. It doesn't open the web page, but it gives you a preview of it. It flat tells me it can't open a secure connection to the website. Well, guess what? The USPS, they have a secure website. It doesn't go down.
Yeah.
I mean, not very often unless it's attacked by script kiddies doing a DDoS attack, but that hasn't happened in a few years.
To conclude, Elizabeth, honestly, I think as it relates to your question, there's many things you can look at. For starters, it's definitely going to be that sender. How were you expecting something from that sender, and are they valid?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't validate the sender, there's a number of different things you can do just looking at the body of that text, that smishing message. That's a tough one. Or the email, the phishing email, right? And just looking at the text and deciding, do I really need this? Does this even pertain to me?
Mm-hmm.
And then also those threats, the urgency. Are you even involved in anything that is that urgent, right? A lot of times those urgent ones are going to be banking, and is it your bank? I bank with U.S. Bank, maybe, right? And U.S. Bank isn't sending me this. Well, then you don't need to open that, right? Regardless of urgency. So
U.S. Bank also, well, actually, most institutions will not send you something that requires you to provide any account information via text.
they already have it.
Yeah, they have it. If anybody ever calls you or ever does anything and they say, "Well, we need you to give us the credit card number," yeah, you work at the bank.
You can
It's
validate
it's
last
there.
four,
Yeah,
but yeah, you
validate
don't.
last four, and that's all you have to do. Which is actually kind of funny because if they are trying to get your credit card number, they more than likely only have the last four
Yep,
because they found a receipt or something else laying around, or had access to someplace that had purchases going through, and they're just funneling off of that.
absolutely.
That's something that we also brought up back in October was, banking institutes and things of that nature are never going to ask you for more than the last four or the last few numbers of your account and so on and so forth. And we did give some more information on that, on how you can, call your bank from the number that you have. I think Matt brought up a good point back in the day on having them make a note in your account and then calling the person at that location to ensure that you're speaking to the actual location that you're intending to speak to. I think it's also really important to be able to use that discernment, be able to look at the text message or the email or whatever it is, maybe a phone call, and say, do I know this number? Do I know this domain? Who is this person? It's okay to snoop. Don't be afraid to try to figure out who Brenda is and why she's asking me for my personal information. So definitely don't just give information out. It's your information, and you got to use that discernment to protect it. So prior to kicking off the examples we prepared today, could you share some key recommendations to steer clear of phishing attempts?
Don't use email.
A
That
little
might be a
harder.
tough one.
Might be a
Yeah.
little bit extreme,
That
but
might be a tough one nowadays, but I mean, you're not wrong. You're gonna eventually you will maybe not fall victim, but you will be susceptible to receiving that type of mail.
they
Um,
blast pretty much every email that they can possibly think of in
and
any
it's
way,
getting
shape,
worse.
or form.
It's getting worse and worse too because of the way
Mm-hmm.
we operate online, right? You need your email to log in, have an account, access anything
Yep.
nowadays. And so as soon as you do that, you never know what are in those terms and conditions. They could be turning around and selling that, right? It's not your password, it's not your social. They can give your emails public,
Mm-hmm.
and as soon as it gets plugged into one of those sites, you never know what. I'm not going to say everybody's doing that, but I mean, the amount of times you punch in an email to 30 sites in a day, or you have all these new accounts, I mean, you're giving that information to them just by signing up.
If you
And
want peace of mind, one of the easiest things that you can do is have a burner email, something that you use purely to log into sites that you are buying things from, etc. One of the things that I've actually done and I've gotten to the point of doing is I buy a domain that I don't care about, and then I create an email address that I don't care about. Then I have a password program like Bitwarden that will keep the passwords for me so I don't have to remember them. And if I need to update them, like if they prompt me to update when I log in, it automatically will allow me to update it in the program. So once I go through and do the registration and I've used enough, or I've logged into what I consider to be enough websites with that email address, delete the email address. Can't get spam if the email doesn't exist.
I practice the same thing as well. I have my personal, my work email, and so on. And not to sound like a broken record, because we have brought that up quite often. But I mean, the emails are free as well on certain uh, you know, platforms. Not to plug anyone here, but it is free. And I have, a work one, a school one, professional. Of course, I keep all my banking and like private things on a more secured email that I don't share publicly. And even just my professional email, just because I'm on LinkedIn and so on, I've gotten spam just from being on LinkedIn. So I mean, it's really hard to even keep your clean emails clean.
You mean that when you're talking about your spam from LinkedIn, you're not talking about the people that send a connection request and instantly try to like get you to buy their products, right?
Oh yeah, that's every day.
Oh, okay. I thought I was special. Never mind.
Alrighty, Tanner. If you want to go ahead and throw up the examples, we can start breaking those
Yeah.
down. I will warn any audio listeners at this part of the stream, it may be a little visual heavy, so we would recommend watching this part of the stream via video. This can be found at the BLOKWORX YouTube, Twitch, or LinkedIn page for viewing. All right, go ahead and take it away.
All right, can you guys see it okay?
Looks
Sure
good.
can.
Perfect. Okay, so like Elizabeth was saying, we've put together a few examples here. These examples are going to come directly out of the security tool called Avanon that we leverage for Scud here within BLOKWORX. The data that you will find in these emails are the same as the data you would find in Office 365, Gmail, Yahoo, AOL, if you're still using that for some reason. Like all of these are, all of this data that you're seeing it's public data as soon as you receive an email. So we'll start with a phishing email here. Like I said, don't worry about the graphics behind this. This is just simply how certain data is ingested for us. It has been scrubbed, obviously, but what we're looking at here is an inbound email that came in deemed phishing. So Microsoft Defender, you can see on the right-hand side there, we have our security stack. Microsoft Defender had called this phishing, gave it an SEL of 5. It was marked as spam by the spam filtering, but ultimately became phishing. Avanon, the tool that we're leveraging here for Scud, also deemed this phishing. There's a little bit more of a breakdown as to why. However, this is not the most end user friendly piece of information we have here. What we're going to be focusing on for this slide is specifically this email profile here. Everything you see within this email profile is what you would find in Outlook or Gmail, like I was saying before. So up top, we just have the message with the subject, youramazon.com. Already, off the start here, Amazon.com, youramazon.com as a subject line. Grammatically incorrect because your Amazon.com is not a thing. You might have an Amazon cart, etc. But if you look at the from section here, we have a sender name of Amazon, just Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Very generic, broad. and then the domain that is attached here to the actual user who sent the message. So Amazon is the name. We have a user, obviously sanitized for privacy purposes, but the domain that sent the message. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this, but you can clearly see by just looking at who sent this message, that is not Amazon.com. Amazon's domain is Amazon. And so, again, just some pretty basic information, but a lot of times overlooked, right? What may seem important based on your Amazon.com is not as important as you would think, specifically due to the person behind the message. Um, there's a little bit of extra information here. Sometimes we can get a reply to. When that is different, we'll touch on that a little bit later, but when that is different, there's obviously more to be looked at there, not just who the sender is, but where it's going to go after you respond. The content type is text. That again is going to be specific to the security tool we're looking at, but anybody can look at a message and determine whether or not there's going to be an embedded attachment, a URL that they can click on. All of that can pop up in the content. This one was specifically text. Um, and if we look down a little further, we can also see the sender is external. So these again are things that Avanan is putting together to then push out for investigation. However, any sender sitting in Outlook inbox can take a look at that and see that sender is external, so it's not within your organization's domain, the domain they were sending to. Any recipient is external, no, so they sent this only internal to the domain that is present on your email address. And any recipient is internal. Yes, obviously you are sitting within the organization. So just for starters there, and to tie in a little bit to what we talked about specific to this slide, that email profile and looking at the message in Outlook, you can see that the name obviously of Amazon just a little skewed. Probably not going to be how Amazon's going to address themselves. The domain that it's coming from has nothing to do with Amazon, and then your subject line is just grammatically incorrect, right? It doesn't make any sense. We're not inquiring about your Amazon.com. I don't know if you guys want to throw in any little bits of information here before we move on to the next one, but otherwise we can press on.
I guess my only comment for this one would be taking the extra time to look at the from domain, and analyzing the like where the message is coming from and if it makes sense or not. I think it's really important. It takes 2 seconds to, put the little drop down and check into it, and you can always Google domains as well. If you're not sure what an Amazon email should look like, go to Amazon.com, go to contact us, see what their domain is. It takes a couple minutes to go and do that little bit of searching just to make sure that you're safe.
All right, so we're going to stick with the phishing here. This is going to be the same email, just a separate section of the analysis here. But what this does is it brings in a little bit more of the technical analysis that went into deciding whether or not this was phishing. So on the left-hand side here, you can see we still have the same from domain. Obviously, sender is there as well. But what we have added here is things like the SPF record, which is spoofing, a record for spoofing. So there was no SPF record in place. So this sender cannot send on behalf of the organization it was sending on. It has not been given that access through configuration. No DMARC policy. SCL was set to spam. That's the spam confidence level. So it was set to be spam, as we saw from Microsoft. And this was a first-time sender. First-time sender piece of this is going to be pretty important. Again, because if you don't have this pretty graphic in front of you to decide whether or not this is going to be a phishing email, being a first-time sender is huge. Have you ever discussed anything with this person? Is this the first time they're contacting you? And obviously we have that data here, but definitely something to keep in mind when you're looking to decide whether or not something is phishing or fishy in general. Moving over to the right-hand side, this is just a quick AI overview of what occurred, or a breakdown, I guess, in a graph of what we had in the security stack. So you can see the textual analysis was probably the most blatant piece of this message that deemed it phishing. Sender info, obviously, as we've been touching on this whole time, is extremely off from what an Amazon domain should be. The brand usage, we can't see this within the body of the email, but that's actually something that the end user would have a little bit of insight to that we don't as a SOC here utilizing this tool. So brand usage, is there an Amazon logo on there? And is that the Amazon logo, right? Are they just throwing up PayPal, a little PayPal link that you can click on, right? Amazon's not going to do that. So brand usage is something else that you can look at inside these messages before you end up clicking on anything, right? Reputation signals we kind of touched on as well. First time sender, not a good look for them, right? You can't just jump into somebody's inbox and have them start clicking on stuff. Unfortunately, that is how it works sometimes. And then the link properties. There was no attachment on this. There was a link though, and the link was, although not extremely fishy, um, the link was not going to get a good rep just because of the nature of the email in the beginning. So we'll be able to take a look at a link in a sandbox in a secure environment here in just a second. But anybody want to add anything here?
The reason they're using that subject line of youramazon.com is because most email programs do not have a very large preview pane. So generally, if you order something from Amazon and you're using a giant monitor that allows you to see way more real estate, Amazon will actually come up, and the title or the subject of their emails is generally youramazon.com order with the order number at
Yeah.
the end of it. So they're taking the
Advantage of
main
wording.
part of youramazon.com and leaving the rest of it out, hoping that you'll just overlook that because you get so many of them from Amazon.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I mean, when it comes to phishing globally, um, the end user is ultimately making that decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter how many tools you have in place, it doesn't make a difference because eventually one of these will make it to you. And it's just a matter of all they need is one click. They get one click and they have everything they need from you.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. I know I touched on relationship strength a little bit here, but this is a breakdown again of what we see in the SOC here at BLOKWORX um, to relate relationship between, as you can see, user to user, user to the domain, the internal domain that it's sending to, your domain, and then the two domains and how often they communicate. So there's four different, I guess, I don't know what's the right word, types, low, medium, high, and highest. Four different
Classifications.
classifications. There you go. That they can give this. So they're going to go through those four classifications for each of the respective relationships because there is a chance that somebody within your organization utilizing that domain is talking to this person or their domain, and so those can look a little bit different than your guys' individual relationship. So obviously here, as a first-time sender, you're going to have zero relationship with the user to user. So that's going to be an automatic low. They've never spoken to you before. User to domain, this person, obviously sitting at low again, has never spoke to anybody within this specific domain of this recipient. And then domain to domain, their domain does not interact with this organization specifically. So again, just a few different ways here that we're given to break this down and understand how many different flags there really are. And again, as an end user, that relationship strength is really just all in your head. If you don't feel comfortable or you're not sure who this is, you can always look at the body of an email for the most part without it being extremely harmful. But as soon as you access the information and data given in that email, whether it is a link, an attachment, etc., taking this relationship into consideration first. Um, it would be the same as, getting a package from somebody you didn't order, you don't know, right? It's sitting on your doorstep. It's a massive box, and you have no idea what's inside. Most people are going to open that. That's a little bit of naive, naive interaction there, but yeah, in as it relates to technology and phishing and email, it's the exact same as taking a drink out of somebody's cup, right? You don't know that person, and you don't know what they're about to give you. So
It's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, I was about to say I really like that you put that together. It makes me think of like letting someone in my house without knowing their name. You want to know who you're communicating with online, in
Yeah.
person. It doesn't matter, especially in today's day and age.
All right, so this part is going to get a little bit more technical. Oftentimes, like Matt was saying, digging into the information, finding out who that person is. USPS doesn't operate out of Thailand. This type of information is not going to just pop up in front of you, right, when you receive an email. But this is some additional information that can be extremely helpful when trying to understand where this sender is from, where they're operating out of, and if they are even who they say they are, just based off of that email address or domain. So here we're looking at the same email. We can see that this email was sent from Reston, Virginia. Everything on the top left is going to be Redmond, Washington. That's Office 365. We're just using an Outlook example, and so that is where that last hop is going to sit. But this sender is sending from Salesforce. Um, for those of you who don't know, Salesforce is very good at blasting emails. If I'm being completely honest, they can send out mass emails all day long. So whether or not this mail transfer agent, obviously owned by Salesforce, is where you were expecting a message to come from, this information for the end users who are wondering, it is available. There's many public websites that you can utilize to reverse look up somebody's email and get an IP address or the host name that it came from, the city that the IP resides in, etc. And again, for the more technical folks who are willing to put that time in and go look and know where to look, hopefully this helps somebody out there take a look when they haven't before. But again, just some additional information that we're looking at that clearly shows, this is a distribution from Salesforce, right? That's not, they are the actual sender, as you can see there, but they're the actual sender because the individual who was sending the email utilized them to send that message. So just keeping track of where it's actually coming from. Physical location is important as well, because you might actually know somebody or that email address, but maybe it's not them this time, right? Maybe they always send from Reston, Virginia, and all of a sudden you're getting a Fort Lauderdale message. And all that stuff is able to be looked up. So just another thing to take into consideration, again, to protect yourself a little better. This is a different email. However, we're looking at the same email transport chain, and there's a link obviously embedded in this one as well. Here, there's a lot more information. This was a Gmail interaction, and the original sender utilized Gmail as well as a VPN that was outside of the United States. So we're getting a ton of additional information here. Unfortunately, we didn't blow up the metadata from these different hops or stops based on servers, but you can see Gmail is sending the mail out. There's a VPN intercepting this that the actual sender is utilizing, probably in India. No, that's not India. Is that Thailand? No, Taiwan.
Looks like
Southwest Asia,
yes,
and
we'll
not
go
the
with that.
United States. And it's bouncing off that VPN, then sending itself back to the United States to be delivered to Office 365. So again, a lot more technical, but you can find this information. There's a website called Scamalytics, scamalytics.com. If you can locate the IP of a sender where an email was sent from, you throw that IP in there, and Scamalytics can tell you if it's utilized with an anonymizing VPN, can tell you if it's been reported for fraud, blacklisted. You can get a lot of information just by publicly looking up an IP database. But again, this right off the bat is just, it's blatantly fishy because this VPN
It's
is,
Thailand.
yeah, well, that too. But it's
Well, no, I
leaving
mean, you were correct. It is actually Thailand. I found it.
Oh,
I found a
it's
map
leaving
and
the
correlated
US.
the location. So there you go.
So, if obviously if your interactions don't leave the US very often, that's one flag right there. And then the link. Everybody knows Coinbase / BTC buy. That's Bitcoin buy. That is the URL you're going to strictly put in the email for you to go to Coinbase and purchase crypto. So obviously, not many organizations doing business in Bitcoin, specifically over email with a vague URL like Coinbase / BTC buy.
Yeah.
I would hope
that's one
not.
that could that's one that could just be analyzed a little bit, right? And you see that sitting at the bottom of your email, even if it was a valid sender, now you know this was sent from a VPN if you were able
Mhm.
to gather that information, and not only sent from a VPN out of Thailand, now you're looking cryptocurrency purchasing page right in the face. You click on that one time, and you obviously a little bit of action has to go into it, but the susceptible individual is going to be delivering some money. So, any added thoughts there?
I was typing something in one of our channels, but I'm going to just ask this on here because you brought up something that we should possibly touch on,
Yeah.
and it's a lovely 3-letter acronym, um, VPNs. So, Avanon, we can see how amazing it is, what kind of awesomeness it has. How does it handle a zero logging VPN if somebody is leveraging that when sending emails?
I'm going to be completely honest. You got me. Um,
And this is I don't
I
have an answer to this
I
because
don't
I'm morbidly curious about this, because the premise behind zero logging is you can't see where the connection originates from. So it
honestly, if I was speaking specifically to Scud with no knowledge of the back end workings of a
Mhm.
zero logging VPN, as you can see, there's multiple hops on there.
Right.
In the event that it's not there, we might be able to look up publicly and see that it's a VPN, but we're not going to get the specific location out of it. I have
That's
never
what
had a
I'm
run in
thinking.
with one, but I would assume that you would still be able to at least get the idea that it's a VPN. You just might not see it in its actual location as a hop for that mail traffic.
Surprisingly, the VPNs, if they are zero logging, the IP addresses are pretty much well known. So you're right. You should be able to see that it's a VPN. My thought is, say, a person does use said zero logging VPN. They say that they are connecting from, and this is an impossibility. Well, okay, it's not an impossibility. It's just really hard to do. They're connecting from Russia. Like, they're setting their location as Russia, but they are actually in the United States. Now, this is something that I can honestly say I've done before for fun. There were reasons behind it, uh, but if an email was sent, I'm thinking the way this would work is it would pick up the email originated from Russia, because that's the termination point of where the VPN would be. And it couldn't go any further since there's no other connection to trace back to.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
this
it
could be
would be
very
whatever's
beneficial.
facing it would be whatever's facing the client they're using for
Yeah.
sending that email. So if they have that Russian location facing, like you said, it's where it's terminating.
Hmm.
That's ultimately, if that's the output, that's what Outlook is going to see.
So if you see something that's using a VPN, I would honestly put myself on high alert for that in and of itself, because you don't really know where the connection's originating from. You just know where they want you to think that it's originating from.
Yep, absolutely. And sometimes, like specifically now to the type of VPN that Matt's talking about, sometimes it's better to be the end user, right? If I can get a
Hmm.
hold of that IP and not see this graphic at all, um, I don't, I'm not going to have it in my head, right? That this VPN is here. If I can just take 4 digits, throw it up there, and look at where it's coming from, and as long as you got yourself a reliable site, that's honestly all you really need as an end user. You don't need a pretty map. You don't need it shouting at you that it's a VPN. Um, IP addresses can get you a really long way
Hmm.
in relation to phishing.
Agreed.
So, so we're going to be switching gears here a little bit, especially going into the holiday season, because these are also red flags. Oftentimes, phishing and spam are intermingled. Maybe not so much as the same thing, but uh, very much as the same action, the same threat, etc. And I wouldn't say that that's 100% correct. So spam ultimately is going to come down to resource. It really is just the overuse, similar to DDoS. I know Matt touched on that earlier. Spam it's a resource utilization hindrance. That's what you're getting from spam. Just mass emails that you don't need, garbage, um, although maybe not harmful or threatening by way of links or attachments. Very much annoying and can get in the way of productivity. And occasionally, they might not be credential harvesting, but they can be social engineering, depending
Mm-hmm.
on what you have interacting with that. So, social engineering is not inherently dangerous, but what happens with that data once you give it to somebody absolutely can occur within a spam email. Um, so here we're looking at a few things. I'm going to start over on the security stack again because this is just specific to the tool that we're utilizing. Under the security stack, we can see here that Microsoft Defender actually would have let this go through. So spam confidence level 1 there means scanned and allowed. BCL is your bulk confidence level, more of a marketing mail style verdict. Gave it a 3. So still low. These are all out of 10 and typically end at 9. But SCL1 means Microsoft got to scan it. They were okay with it. They passed it along, although they thought it was possibly just a marketing message. With that being said, Avanon grabbed this message, drug it through the SmartFish engine, and deemed it full-blown spam. Um, Also took consideration that Microsoft believed that it was or should be allowed and was not spam. And again, here we have a few additional, it's going to be a lot less technical in nature because it's not malicious. It is
Mm-hmm.
annoying, for lack of better words. So there was a link involved. It was a link to a low traffic site, but there was nothing that they could find that was blatantly threatening, again, like I said. So if we head back over to the email profile, again, everything you would see in Outlook just for the spam message type. The from is an info at. And the reason I point this out is the name extremely long. The info at is a generic shared mailbox somewhere. It's a mailbox that multiple people probably have access to. And the domain planyourevents.com. Um, it's an organization, a company, somebody trying to get you to see their information that they have to provide. Now, when it comes to the reply to, we touched on this with phishing. The reply to itself is nowhere near what the actual info at user is under this domain. So it's still the same domain. That's where it's going to go back to. However, it is a extremely long and obfuscated user under this domain that you would be responding to in the event that you did become in communication with them, right? Decide to respond. Um, so again, you're going to have all the normal things you would see in an Outlook email or window. You got the subject line, project management for administrative professionals. Very vague, not directed at you or anything you have an affiliation to. You might be subscribed to this. However, it's, again, like I said, project management for administrative professionals. Maybe you're an administrative professional, maybe not, but you were a part of this group that got this shotgun spam message.
Mm-hmm.
Content type, text. Again, there was a link embedded here, but text is going to be the largest thing that they made their decisions on, along with relationship. And so again, an end user can do the same thing. Take a look at that reply to, drag down, like Elizabeth said, take the extra second to get the details of how this message actually got to you. And you would see that clicking that reply button actually doesn't go back to info at. The time the email was received, everybody can see that, obviously, just like a phishing email. Sender's external, yes. Recipient external, no. Again, so that just means that outside the organization, so this was coming inbound, and that was it. And you were the only internal recipient. Now, with this specifically, we had a link from this planyourevents.com domain that could be accessed, which is why I brought up social engineering. This link, unfortunately, was reviewed by the sandbox prior to being deemed spam and sent to junk, rightfully so. During that analysis, there was um, there was the HTTP protocol that was found. Obviously, nowadays, clicking on a URL, you want that to be secure, right? HTTPS. There are a lot of holes in HTTP, and people are able to access a lot of data that you probably don't want them to see utilizing that protocol, right? You can have DNS hijacking. Somebody can steal your session. They can log keys, a number of things. And HTTP in short terms allows plain text reading of what is occurring in the request and response of a web server. So HTTPS is going to be the number one flag here, or the lack of use of HTTPS, um, and this being hosted on port 80. The actual URL or domain in the URL, um, luckily this tool for us goes through and gives it a relationship and reputation scan. Um, this has a zero traffic, low reputation domain, which means of all the times that this has been shotgunned out or accessed, it's zero traffic. Nobody is on this website. It's not heavy in users, and luckily having a little bit of that additional information here through Avanon gives us that insight. Now, one of the best pieces to this is finding out exactly what this end user would have received had this not been remediated as spam. And in doing so, we are able to utilize the URL sandbox here. Um, Utilizing that, we clicked on the link and it pulled up a brief interactive screenshot is what we see here. And as you can see, what we're all looking at here, a live webinar that you can sign up for. Now, being that this is spam, is it a live webinar that's actually occurring? Maybe. But there's no way to tell, right? This link is suspicious in its own right, and came along with a spam message. Now, registering for this, there is no telling what happens to your information. You're probably going to need full name, phone number, email address, maybe where you work, depending on what these administrative professionals are doing or what matters for this specific webinar. But um, the long short is there is no telling by clicking on that register now button where you would go. And this, again, just giving a nice graphical representation of what a URL sandbox can do for you, similar to what Matt was doing with the smishing, being able to hover over that and preview something before you actually see it in a safe environment. It's huge when it comes to spam and phishing. So
I think it's important to remember that nothing is free. So you may be registering for this free event, this free webinar to learn something or, get information on a product. However, if it's not a known, trusted organization or someone that you gave your information to and you know that you should be receiving an email from that corporation, you shouldn't be filling these things out, even if they're not malicious. Your data's for sale. So say this isn't a malicious link, you want to go to the webinar, you fill it all out, you're putting yourself on a list for cold calling, for more spam, and then
Mhm.
eventually probably ending up on the dark web with your information for sale for those malicious hackers and so on and so forth. So it may not start really malicious, but it can definitely get there very quickly with just putting more information out there than you need to.
Absolutely. So going along here with the same message we were just looking at. Again, we have the relationship strength. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Obviously, all low. Email transport chain. This actually came from Salesforce as well within the US. But again, not too much there for spam in way of spam. Um, Now, just overall general red flags. Elizabeth, I don't know if you want to touch on this a little bit, but um, we can cover just what we're looking at now more from a user perspective.
Yeah, I think it's definitely helpful to look at it from like what an end user would see. Like we stated previously, just looking at the top, seeing, um, if there's a sense of urgency, like what the subject line actually says, like action required or emergency, anything that's making you want to click on it quicker is probably going to be malicious in some sense. And of course, looking at the addresses, if you don't know the domain, look it up. It's okay to search. I don't know how many times I've even looked up just phone numbers to see what the area code is. Why are these people contacting me? Emails if they line up with the domain. And go ahead and search in your recent emails to see if you have that relationship. So you may not have Scud or Avanon or any kind of email security, but you can still use your own discernment and see, have I ever emailed this person? Why are they asking me questions or personal information, or why are they sending me an invoice if I've never communicated with them before? Um, Obviously, looking for spelling and grammar mistakes. Not very many people are going to send an email with grammar mistakes, unless it's maybe a small mom and pop shop, but still, that is something to really keep an eye out on. Um, Again, when it comes to links in an email, if you're not expecting it, don't click on it. If it's not HTTPS, don't click on it. Hover over, like the image is showing, to see where it's going to take you, and just be suspicious. It's okay to be scared to click on those links, especially if you're not expecting the email.
There's
Um,
something else you need to do with those links as well. This is something we didn't touch on, but there are letters on the alternative keyboard that look extremely close to the letter that it's supposed to be. Case in point, just so people are aware, US Bank is very commonly used as phishing because there is a letter A on the alternative keyboard that looks almost identical to the regular letter A when you put it into a hyperlink. All it takes is that one simple change. You're not going to notice it because it looks extremely close to what's already there. But
Yeah, that
taking a look and being hypercritical of any link that comes in, yeah,
that's a big one, especially not having, like Elizabeth was saying, when you don't have some of those tools, and I know I said it as well. We understand that not everybody has the ability to have this stuff sandboxed and analyzed before they receive it. Um, so when this does make it to your inbox, being like you said, hypercritical, hovering over that link, that might be a lot of there might be a lot of people that don't know that that's a thing, right? Being able to look at that and you're looking at www.securitybank.net, when in reality what you're looking at after you click on this is www.malware.com/hack, right? And so obviously a little bit aggressive of an example, but when they don't match in general, when it can't, it's called a direct link or a shortener, right? So um, you can see if that's not the direct link, if you're seeing a shortener instead of what you're actually about to head to, pulling that shortener up just by hovering or control hovering over it before you click on it,
mm-hmm.
it will populate exactly what you're about to navigate to. Um,
To put it in simple sense, it's kind of like if you guys have ever gone to let me Google that for you and you find a website, you can actually click use short link and it takes the long link and turns it into something that's maybe about 16 characters long.
Bitly, I'm sure you guys
Ah,
have heard
there you
about it. That's
go.
a big one.
Yes.
You will see that everywhere, specifically on ads. A lot of people will leverage Bitly to shorten the URL that you're actually navigating to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think it's also important to note when you're on social platforms, there are a lot of links, as well, and you can also use that tactic to just make sure that you're clicking on what you think you're clicking on. I think that's
absolutely.
a very important thing to bring
If
up.
we're gonna talk about social platforms, uh, I'm just gonna throw this out there. We've talked about this before. It does bear discussing again. If you are to click on anything on a social media platform, I'm not going to say which one that starts with an M. There is absolutely no authentication done with links that are put into promoted ads. They do not scan, they do not validate, they do not visit, they do not anything. They just accept the money and say, okay, thank you, here is your promoted ad. It becomes sponsored, it becomes the top of everything, it goes to every person that you would ever want to see. If you click on that, there's a possibility you could have a phishing site, and that's the least of your worries. Bigger worries are they could have something that's even more malicious baked into that. It's not uncommon that phishing is used as just kind of a distraction while other things are dropped to your machine that you don't even know are going on. You go to that website, there's a possibility that it could run code and open a reverse shell to your machine. That's why we're trying to emphasize, the level of severity with phishing. It's not simply just stealing grandma's, username and password anymore. It's a whole bunch of, they could get access to really anything. With the advent of work from home, get access to a home computer and then jump to another machine via lateral movement. It's
And
easier to
where's
get
that home
into it
computer
from
remoting to?
exactly. It's easier to get into somebody else's machine if you're using an already weakened system, like a home machine that has, less than stellar defenses on it. So be very, very careful. I'm not trying to scare anybody. This isn't the gloom and doom hour that I usually bring up, but this is something that is becoming worse and worse. If you look at the amount of attacks that are going on a daily basis with people that are getting ransomed, breached, etc., I'll give you guys a heads up. Did you know that a certain bank that operates of America was breached not very long ago, like probably less than 24 hours ago, with over 500,000 records stolen and available on the dark web right now? We were talking about user information becoming available and you being an easy target. There you go. They've got
They didn't even
everything
have
right
to
there.
interact with you.
Nope,
Yeah,
didn't have to
now they
interact
have
with
your
you at all.
personal information.
Yeah, I
So
think
now
that's
you're going to get all kinds of stuff. Your email address is in there, your first and last name, your address. Hell, your social security is in there.
I think that's
Banks
what
have all
really
that.
makes having this end user education really important. Just even for yourself, like if you're just an individual scrolling and happen to come upon this video or podcast, you don't have to be in cybersecurity or have even an interest in cybersecurity. This should be, helpful for anyone and everyone who is on the internet, which should nowadays is everyone. So I feel
That
like this is very helpful information for
that was your goal.
yeah.
The initial goal of setting up this entire thing was make cybersecurity approachable to everyone.
Mhm.
And I believe, the topics that you're coming up with, Elizabeth, spot on.
Well,
Like
it's definitely a
you're
team
making
effort.
it manageable.
Well, speaking of those without, security backgrounds or even security services, what I guess these examples that we showed today obviously would land in your email box. You would
Mhm.
get these emails. There's no kind of protection in place. What would you recommend? I guess we've kind of hit all these, but would you kindly go through a list of what you would recommend someone doing as they're opening an email? Like a step by step, where to check first, what to do next, and so on and so forth, before clicking on a link or doing anything further for emails that are in their inbox.
Well,
yeah.
in your inbox, if you open up one of the emails, first things first, you're going to have what you have up there. You're going to have the user that sent it to you. You can click on that and you can actually bring up the information about who it's from. You can see if they sent it to any other additional parties. If you see that, it came from somebody and you see you and 457 other recipients, there's a pretty good chance that you don't really need to interact with that email unless you have major FOMO. And then, I mean, I can't help you there, but that's a dead giveaway that it was not directed to you. It was directed as what Tanner called. That's a shotgun blast. They're sending that out to everybody they possibly can, hoping that somebody is going to click on it.
Absolutely. I think my focus would be on links, and honestly, with links, I want to tie into files as well because that's
Mm,
something Matt touched on at the very end. But links are extremely dangerous in the way of phishing. But when somebody's trying to deliver you malware, like he said, these links and files, they can act without you touching them. They can act without any interaction, completely remote, all by themselves.
mm-hmm.
And all you need to do is open it. Um, and sometimes not even open it in your example. But I would say links, just double checking, making sure you shouldn't be fearful of links by any means, especially if you're going through all of these steps. If you've already validated the sender, you know you were expecting an email from them. You were expecting this link, right? Obviously, there's not too much more you need to look into aside from that. Um, Being able to just put that additional effort into where am I headed? Is this actually where I'm headed? Or what is this file? Is this what I was expecting? Do I normally receive this file type? That's a big one. A lot of times, these aren't, I mean, they can be sent as exes, right? But I mean, if you've never seen a specific file type before, what are you getting that now for, right? Why would you open something that's compressed in a that you have to open up in like a, I don't even know how to explain it.
WinZip, WinRAR,
Yeah, something that
7-zip.
you have to actually go in and unfold, unpackage to get to, right? Not that those are inherently dangerous, but if you don't receive those, maybe that's not something you need to be going through. And so
PDFs are also a good one.
I will
Yeah.
Very,
say,
very rarely do you find companies that will just send you a PDF file.
and the PDFs used to be deemed inherently safe. That is not the case anymore.
Not with the embedded coding that you can use in them now.
I will say also never enable macros right away, especially if you're not expecting a document with macros. So,
Microsoft was nice enough to go through and make a change to where macros are disabled by default now.
oh, good.
But there are a bunch of people that have gone in and via their corporate policies have enabled those macros via group policy.
At least keep it on so you have to push OK, so you know that something is running. It's just a good idea. Even if you're expecting these type of documents, it takes 2 seconds to enable it or allow the macros to run, just so you know if something is going on. Being
You touched
aware.
on the important thing right there. Verify. If you get an email from somebody and it's, commonly they're going to try to go after people that they're going to use somebody else's address book to send to all of those addresses in hopes that they can get somebody to click on it because it's somebody they know. If you get something that just seems really out there, like this person doesn't normally send you links, they don't send you ads, offers, etc. It's very simple to reach out and ask the person, hey, did you send me an email that has this in there? If you don't get a response back from them or they say, what email? The response that you say is, I believe that your email potentially has been breached. You need to go in and change your password. And then also, do not click on anything that they sent you.
And leveraging IT administrators. I know it's kind of an overstated statement, but in the event that you can't verify or don't know what you're looking for, this isn't something you can just learn overnight, unfortunately. Get with somebody who knows, especially if it's in a professional environment. It's a little harder to do in a personal environment, but I mean, do your best to verify in those kinds of environments. But really, where a lot of this important data outside of just your personal information is being sent and utilized in communications is business. Get with somebody who's assigned to that and let them make the decision for you. And yeah, like I said, that's probably an overused statement, but really leverage your administrators to make that decision and help you with their expertise.
It's interesting how that shift actually happened. Before, all of this phishing used to be, personal accounts and everything else that they were trying to, get you to click on and steal your info. Now it's shifted to where they're basically trying to just do this in enterprises because they found that,
remote work.
well, that and target rich environment. Enterprises are going to have more in the form of resources. They're going to have more, well, just money overall than most individuals are going to have. So if they're going to risk, getting in trouble for something, may as well risk it for something that's much larger than a piggy bank.
Absolutely.
I completely agree. Well, to close the stream, I want to thank you both for your wonderful insights and for taking the time to be here. If you are interested in knowing more about BLOKWORX Guide services, please feel free to comment or navigate to blockworks.com and fill out the Contact Us form. We would love to discuss this further with you and answer any questions you might have. Again, thank you all for joining the discussion. Remember to stay frosty and keep an eye out on your emails.
Have a good one, guys.